When you think of smallmouth destinations, most people will tell you if you're an avid smallmouth angler, you need to hit the Susquehanna River at some point. So last October, I caught a lot of fish here. I had a blast. And with the Bassmaster Kayak Series Susquehanna event happening once again, this time during the summer, we made the trek from Illinois all the way to Pennsylvania with my buddy Ryan. And we took a trailer and we went together. However, this experience was much different. We were in a weird low period that we suddenly got a surge of water, and the water kind of evened out a little bit during the tournament, so the bite was all over the place. And truthfully, my bite was not great during practice, but we did find a few things that worked. And this is going to be a different style video. I'm going to narrate a lot of it just because we didn't really have a lot of action. So I'd like to fill in the gaps and kind of give you guys an idea of the thought process and breaking down how I do a tournament. So right out of the gate here, we made it into town and we just decided to launch. I wanted to explore the West Branch, which is a branch of the Susky that they've included quite a few launches on, but you've never really seen anybody win on it. And specifically, there was a lot of feeder creeks that fed into it, and you can tell that we're dragging upstream. The current was pretty strong. Ultimately, we decided it's not worth it. We turn around and float back, and I decide to fish some of the ripping current. And I'm just going to let this play because we do catch a couple fish, but I want to point out this current is extremely swift. It may not look like it, but it's taking everything to get up it because I'm running the NK 300.
I got a big one. Yeah, this is like a 20. I don't know, maybe not. He's fat, man. This is a big one. Right on those rocks. Look at that. Spot too. Oh, you think he is? That's a good one.
Looks like a 17 and a half.
Oh, with 18. Yeah, he's 18.
Yeah?
Just about. I mean, it would be close, but it's
17 and 3/4.
first Pennsylvania fish.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a bad little start. That fish was just over 18. You probably could have squeezed 18 and a half out of him if you pinched the tail. But I continue to push up this side with the swift current. We don't really catch anything of merit, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit and talk about what our next decision was. And that decision was to leave. You know, I caught that first good one, but most of the fish we were catching in this area just weren't the size that we were looking for. The water was clear and the current was up, so we make a move to go get some lunch and then launch on the main stem. This was about as uneventful as it gets. We didn't really catch anything on the main river, so I decided to push into this creek here, which a lot of you guys, if you fished it, will recognize. It's a pretty prominent creek. I decided to push in here after just mostly catching dinks on the main part of the river and see if I can find anything of size.
There we go. fatty. Top water.
But unfortunately, disaster strikes here. As I push up pretty far, I sit back down to pull up my motor, and boom, my motor breaks. So that puts a big kink in my plans here.
The hits keep coming and they don't stop. My motor just broke. You want to see what happened? I mean, it still works. There's nothing wrong with the motor. The steering bracket shattered. Down here? Look at the back. What, do you notice something that's missing? I broke the metal thing. It's like attached to the pull rope. You'll see it right there. It broke off. The plastic just shattered. See it? Like right there? This thing? No. See how it's like...
Oh!
Just freaking broke. Ryan's on his way.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. So I can't lift my motor.
So yeah, broke our motor. Let's fast forward to day 2 of practice. Day 2 of practice, we're switching to the NK180 because I was smart and brought a backup. I probably could have fixed the 300, but ultimately I decided to go with the 180, and we're launching again here on the West Branch because it's alluring to have this bigger water that not as many people are fishing. So we're trying to figure it out, and ultimately it goes about the same as day 1.
Oh my gosh. A decent one. Oh my gosh. Jeez. That was a freaking Mondo. I was going so fast that my momentum just carried me. It's a good one. Alright, so he was on the mud bank side, which is weird. That's really weird, honestly. $17 and a quarter. $17 and a quarter. So nice little healthy one there. Dude, he hit that like 3 times. I should have brought my big net.
About the same as yesterday. I caught one good one, but couldn't put together the quality numbers that I knew you needed to win, so we pack it up, go get lunch, and make another move. Familiar place where I fished the tournament last year, which is a tributary of the Susquehanna, the Juniata. Now on the Juniata, there's some really big fish, but there's a lot of eelgrass making it difficult to fish, as well as super clear water, so you gotta make a really long cast, and really accurate cast and not spook the fish. Now last year I got on a really good jerkbait bite, caught 90 inches in practice there multiple times, and we
Wow.
find out that yes,
This is
there's actually a
legitimately a
jerkbait bite
microback
going here.
fish.
But the thing about a Juniata is a lot of fish spawn in here, so you do catch a lot of small ones.
Little
And I
guy.
didn't catch any shortage of fish, and we push up pretty far up here, upriver from where we launched, and I caught some solid ones, but once again, the biggest one I caught was 17.75, you know, the 18-inch class. We didn't catch a lot of them. However, I got a bite up in the grass from one of the biggest fish I had seen in this river. And with the abundance of big fish I saw upriver in this grass flat, I knew I could come here and have a really competitive day if need be. So we ultimately leave this spot once again and call it for the day, which takes us to the final day of practice where we finally figure something good out. Now I'm launching here on the main stem in a pretty popular location. I know there'll be a ton of boats here if we decide to launch here in the tournament, and making a trek upstream, and I'm going to fish some of the grass islands, you know, your typical sussy stuff. And we actually put together a pretty good string of fish here, and it makes me have some pretty big confidence in this stretch.
Almost guaranteed I knew that. I knew he was there. Wasn't a very big one, but at least I caught a fish. That's a big one.
So yeah, we caught some fish, we lost some fish, and you might notice that I don't really have all the footage, and that's because our GoPro overheated. Yes, I forgot my sunscreen, and unfortunately it overheated, and I lost a couple moments where we caught some quality fish. However, if you can tell by the one I lost, there's some pretty big fish around here, and we're mostly fishing these like kind of staircase type areas where there's a lot of like shoals, grass islands, and some swift current. And ultimately we decide this is the spot. This is where we're going to launch on tournament day on Saturday. But wait a second, I've launched, it's tournament day, and we're not at that spot. It appears that we're on the Juniata, because we are. At the last second we decide to make a change. We know that 3 people in our house are going to this spot. We already know a ton of other people are going to the spot we wanted to go to on the main river. And at the last second, we decide to go to the Juniata. And I am confident in this decision because I assume that it's not going to be packed. I fished it last year and no one launched with us. So we pull up to the ramp and there's 8 other boats here. And that just sends me into a panic because we had made a last second pivot that looks like it was a complete disaster. Well, unfortunately my GoPro didn't catch the first 2 clips because it was pitch black, but we catch 2 keepers right off the bat in this spot where we're fishing right now on topwater. You can't see it, but there's a guy to my right fishing the other side of the shoal, and I'm wanting to go up it, but I'm being a bro here. I don't want to blow up his spot until I've given him ample time to fish it. So I continue to fish this spot, just see if I can pick off a couple more nice ones before I give up on it. I get several hits and I'm dealing with eelgrass, so it's really frustrating, but ultimately I do decide to move up river after I've given him some time to kind of fish that spot. Now while I see a couple big ones here as I make my way up the shoal, they swirl on my bait but they don't hit it. Later I do find out that the guy behind me ends up cashing a check. He did not leave this little stretch, so it made me feel a little salty that I didn't fish it more, but I was trying not to be right in front of him considering that I was just going up the shoal and this is the only spot to do it. So he ends up catching some of those fish, and I believe it because as I approach the rim here I see a couple big ones, but my goal is to push up to that grass flat and even further beyond. So we finally make it all the way up here, all the way motored all the way up to where we want to be, and we didn't catch a single fish. And I think it's maybe because the water conditions changed slightly. It was a little bit warmer today than it was the previous days, and we're just not getting anything. At this point I'm panicking, like, what an idiot, why did I leave fish to find fish? You know, we were nervous about the parking situation at that ramp because there wasn't a lot of spots and there was no street parking because it was in a village. All these thoughts are running through my head about all the mistakes we made, so I make the decision to continue pushing up until I can't push up anymore. However, the further up you go in this river, the crazier the eelgrass gets and the harder it is to throw topwater, and these fish were clearly kind of locked in on topwater. So I make a change that kind of saves the day, and that is going to the Teckle Sprinker frog. Now, I've talked about this frog a lot, but it's essentially a plopper style frog that doesn't get snagged up in weeds, so I switched to this, and literally on the first cast with it, it pays off.
Literally the first cast on the sprinkler frog. I switched because I was getting too much eelgrass.
So at this point we're sitting at 3 fish, which is definitely a lot slimmer than I was expecting this bite to be. We didn't pick any on the way up, and I continue to push up and just keep exploring this area because I've been up here before. Water's a little low though, so a lot of these areas that I thought would hold some single fish that would help us build out a solid limit were just vacant. These fish just weren't there, so I decide after talking to my buddy who I'm fishing with here to just head back down the river and try to pick off a few more on the grass flats with jerkbaits, which tends to be pretty successful in this river, and I get instant results here. In the form of a dink. So I do finally get a limit of like some dinks here on the way down, which is definitely not what we're looking for, but it's something, you know, it kind of gives you those 5 fish to feel like, okay, well now I can go hunt some big ones. And I decided to go and fish a pattern that worked really well last year, and that was this ledge that has a bunch of current pushing over it with jerkbaits. And I'm able to pick off 2 more fish, giving us our total of 5 fish, replacing those 2 dinks. So I don't end up having to actually score those fish because we pick off 2 here with the jerkbaits.
was 2 of them with it that were much bigger than this.
So yeah, that gives us our 5 fish for a very, very small limit. And I decided just to stay in this area after exploring a little bit more. And I pick off another nice 17.5, which puts us at a paltry 76.75 inches. Much further than where we were expecting to be at this point. So that puts us in 125th place, which is honestly pretty disappointing. But let's fast forward into day 2. We decided to launch at the same area that we were planning on going to on day 1, but at a park that is legal, that has a small little canoe and kayak ramp, and we launched there. And I don't pick anything up during the dark period, but I do make it up to these shoals and finally start catching some fish in pretty fast succession. So I'm going to let these play with limited narration here, because it is some pretty fast action here on top water. We get like a couple 16s like right off the bat. As you see my awful netting job.
That was weird. That was holy. Oh my god.
This fish right here actually ends up being a 16.5. So we're actually on something here. We've got a 16 and a 16.5 to start. I just want to jump in here and say this is the fattest sub 18-inch fish I've ever caught. This fish is like 17 3/4 and it weighs like 3.5 pounds. It's absurd how fat this fish was. That's a pretty nice one right there. 17 3/4. Couldn't get him to touch 18. So if you've been watching me on social, you probably have seen this clip before if you've got to this point, but my line breaks here on some braid on probably the biggest smallmouth I've ever hooked on this river, or even in general. It was a very large smallmouth. And I'm guessing that my line had a fray in it from fishing around all this wood, so shame on me for not checking, but it's kind of tough with braid sometimes. But it doesn't really phase me that much, to be honest with you. I just tie on another and get back to work.
Oh, he's barely hooked. These smallmouth are mean, dude. Look at that, 18 and a half. 18 and a half. You know, we're having a much better day today. Look at that big old Mondo. We're having a much better day today. Big old Mondo Susky Smallie. is this fish? What on earth? I want you guys to see this. How is this real? This might be the fattest smallmouth I've ever caught.
So yeah, that fills out our limit here. This one right here is another good solid fish, and I'm feeling pretty good. You know, I think we're sitting at like 86 3/4 inches at this point. Considering how bad yesterday was, I'm pretty happy with this since we're just kind of going for broke. It would have been nice to land that one that broke my line, but I think this is the last big upgrade of the day.
Alright, well we got 16 and a half out of him. Dude, that is the most stacked smallmouth I've ever caught in my life. It's probably 3 pounds or more. It's ridiculous. GoPro, stop recording.
So while the results didn't go the way we wanted it to go, we take out at this park here, as you can see. You probably recognize this if you're a local. We moved up a solid 60 spots to go from the middle of the pack all the way up into the upper third with 163 inches on the dot. So honestly, all things considered, even though we didn't really place where I wanted to place in this tournament, um, you know, it could have been a lot worse considering how bad day one was and the bad decisions we made and some of the bad luck I had for that much. So hope you guys enjoyed this style of video. I'm looking forward to going back to Susquehanna as soon as possible, and this time I hope to do a little bit better.